Three, two, one. Hello, my name is Jordan, and this is a special episode where I got to introduce my friend, Logan, to the Superman movie by James Gunn. He did not know a lot about DC. Obviously, he'd seen like Dark Knight trilogy. Um, did not know a lot about Superman. And for his podcast, The Screen Society, he welcomed me on. He watched Superman for the first time, and we spent a good chunk of time talking about that movie, about the character, what he thought of it. We did this back in January, so it was about 6 months after the movie released. So uh, he allowed me to share this on our podcast feed, Soups and Sabers, as well. So this is just an introduction to let you know that what you're hearing is from the podcast, The Screen Society. But it is me introducing this movie and the world of Superman to my friend Logan. So he is the host of that podcast. So from here on out, I'm going to be more of the, guest role in this, but obviously chiming in with my thoughts, giving him background information, and answering his questions about Superman, the world of DC Comics, all of that good stuff. So I just thought it'd be fun to share on here as we are building to Supergirl that we're revisiting the Superman movie, and this was recorded probably after my fifth or sixth time watching the movie and his first. So thank you all for watching or listening to this episode. So here it is.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Screen Society podcast, a podcast that covers all things TV, movies, and everything you get on your screen. I'm joined today by my favorite guest I ever have, and that is Jordan Wiegand of Soups and Sabers. He's on about 26 different podcasts with me at times. But Jordan, how you doing today?
Good. I was going to say, am I the only guest so far? So I would have to be the favorite
yes,
one.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, that is why you are. You will be my favorite until we get anybody else on.
Yeah, anybody else.
Anyone at this point, Jordan. So I think we'll get into it right away, Jordan. I'm excited because we are talking one of my favorites, Superman, because, I've got a lot of history with superheroes, so I'm excited. I know you had some questions for me at first, so we can kind of get into that. What's your? I know you were texting me like I had some things I wanted to talk to you about first. So what could it possibly be?
I got bones to pick with you, buddy.
Yes.
No, I was just gonna say. I guess there's a nice little opening for the listeners on what do you know about Superman? Like, how many Superman experiences have you had? Like, what are you familiar with? Like, were you going in pretty cold on this? That's the kind of stuff I think is pretty important to know.
Jordan, I am as cold as Antarctica on this one.
Oh, okay.
Much like our background here.
I know it feels like -2 up here right now.
Well, it's 20 here in Florida. So, but no, Jordan, I'm going in as cold as I wouldn't say as cold as possible. I did tell you I know a few things about Superman and the lore of the Cape, but I don't know a whole lot. So you're gonna have to give me a little bit of background here on some of this stuff. I know that you're more than capable of that. But yeah, no, I know Lex Luthor. I know Crypto. I know Lois Lane, Kryptonite, but that's about it. Jordan, Smallville, I know that one too. But nothing.
Do you know Crypto before this, or?
Yes, I did know Crypto before this. Mostly because I always thought he was adorable, and I was like, "Who is that?" And I didn't know who he was attached to, and I'd seen him in some kind of comic or something like that, and I was like, "Obviously, this has got to be Superman, right?" So I looked him up, and he is connected to Superman, obviously. And I have questions about him later on, because we do get not a nod. We get a character at the end of the movie who I'm very curious about, and her interaction with Crypto. But I know we'll get to that one.
Some notes there too, yeah.
So you have to fill me in. But yeah, we're revisiting Superman because I'd never seen it and I'd heard a lot about it. I know that there is a lot of hype around this movie, Jordan, because of what it's began. So For the listeners that are jumping into this, I know a lot of them are probably Superman fans at this point, or have seen the movie a ton of times, because we're doing this pretty late in
7
the
months
game. I
later.
mean,
Yeah.
it's
6
been
months
quite
later.
some time since it first came out. But Jordan, what is your background with Superman? Like, where does he rank among your favorites, and what do you have as far as history with him?
Yeah, big Superman fan. I grew up, obviously a Spider-Man, Batman, X-Man fan. But there was an animated universe called the DC Animated Universe that started with Batman the Animated Series and continued into Batman Begins and Batman Beyond, and Superman the Animated Series, and then eventually Justice League. But so obviously, I grew up watching Superman the Animated Series. I probably saw the Christopher Reeve Superman movies at some point as a kid. But what really kicked it off was Smallville. Probably so. Smallville aired in 2001. I don't think I saw it right away. Obviously, I would have been 10. I probably saw it a couple years later when it was in syndication on what used to be known as ABC Family. Now it's Freeform. But it would run on ABC Family after Dukes of Hazzard. So it'd be Dukes of Hazzard for like an hour, and then it would be Smallville. And the guy who is one of the Duke brothers also plays his dad in Smallville. So it's kind of like a Jonathan Snyder, like 2-hour block.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where like you stumble upon the show and you're like, well, obviously I know Smallville's where he grew up, so it's a Superman show. You see Lex Luthor, you're like, okay, this is interesting. But it's like in that show, Lex and Clark start off as friends, so you're kind of watching to see where that's going to deteriorate, and you're also seeing gain new powers, and get closer and closer to becoming Superman. And the people who wrote that actually wrote Spider-Man 2, the Tobey Maguire movie. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of similarities I find between a character like Clark and Peter Parker, where they just want to do what's right. And, when they have great power comes great responsibility, right? So I find Superman kind of has that sort of vibe as well, with needing to just do what is right. And even if it comes at the cost of his personal life and getting in the way of relationships with Lois, or back in Smallville, Lana, and his friends and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I really started it. And then, just have, dove into the comics at some point as a kid, and just he stands for what is all good and right. So I think that is something that the world really needs right now. And he's my number 2. It's Spider-Man, then Superman as top heroes. So that's where he kind of sits.
I think I knew that, but I was like, I mean, I know Spider-Man. I know Spider-Man ranked really high for you. He's number 1 for me too. And I was like, I wondered, and I don't think I asked you this. I wondered if it was because to me, they feel very similar in the way that they see the world, as far as being an optimist, being somebody that wants to do right and wants people to do the right things, and ultimately lead with their morals and their values. And I think it's something that obviously those things are challenged in superhero movies, but like these two feel very, Spider-Man and Superman feel very I wouldn't say like what do you call it, immune to the darkness, but like they definitely feel like people that rise up above it every time when given the choice.
Yeah.
And while challenged with it sometimes, it's usually by outside factors that it's challenged by. Even when the darkest things happen to Spider-Man and Superman, they tend to go the opposite direction and see it as a valuable lesson. And they also kind of have similar job. Like they feel very similar to me.
Reporter,
The way that they feel.
newspaper,
Yeah.
photographer, reporter,
Secret identities.
right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
With
Daily
with
Bugle,
good friends
Daily
around
Planet.
them. Yes. With really good friends around them. Much like you are to me. But like It does. It feels very and I saw a bunch of so I was reading through the criticisms because that's what I like to do is to read where
Yeah.
people found flaws with it. Jordan, and I wanted to get your opinion on when this first came out and like what this mean. Like first, I want to see what your thoughts were when this first came out. Like when did you
How
see
they've
it opening night and stuff like that? And then also like what did you feel was the reaction to it? Because I'm listening to this retroactive, like I'm listening to reactions from back then that are, I mean, everybody I'm listening to were head over heels for this
Mhm.
movie. Was it that same kind of impression you got from when it first came out?
It depends on the corner of the internet you're on, I think. So,
Yeah.
there were so I saw it opening night, not the Amazon. They had an Amazon preview screening, which was like the Tuesday before it released or the Monday before it released. I think it was Tuesday, but it was just IMAX showings. They were very expensive tickets, like $27 a ticket. I was not going to that, so I went to just the normal Thursday night opening preview. Um, at my local theater. I did get like I did buy the premium seats though, so it was Ultra AV, which is like clearer image, better sound, all that kind of stuff. Kind of like an IMAX, but like not as big of a difference, I guess. It was my first movie seeing in a premium format, like on purpose. I wanted to see, Big Blue on the big screen. So I did that, and then uh, I walked out. I kept telling people I really liked it, didn't love it. Really liked it, didn't love it. In the sense of this always happens to me when I watch a movie for the first time. It kind of
Yeah.
feels weird for the first bit because you're like,
Yeah.
is this how I thought it was going to go? Is this, oh, that's a
Yeah.
choice. That's a choice. And then the more I thought about it, and by the time I probably got to recording the podcast about it that we did on Soups and Sabers, um, I really ended up loving it. Some of my friends that fell in love with it right away. I know Ron, who wasn't big into Superman, has this in like his top 3 superhero movies of all time. Chris really enjoyed it right off the bat, but I think it was like I had to sit with it a bit. I had to sit with it, think about it, and the more I thought about it, the more I ended up loving it because of uh again, just kind of what it stands for and what it does. And then when the movie came out digitally, I did not buy it digitally because I like physical media. So I had to wait like an extra month and a half, something like that.
Yeah.
And but people on YouTube were doing their, reaction videos. So I watched like so many of those the first week it hit digital and just got to see some of my favorite scenes again. And then when it came out on DVD, I was finally able, or I mean, yes, it technically came out on DVD. I have it on 4K Blu-ray, not DVD, but
Yeah.
I, put it on the PS5. It looked great on my TV, and I started just falling more and more in love with the movie to the point I've seen it probably about 6 times now. So
Well, that's good
I
though.
watched it.
Yeah.
I watched it on the 17th, and then I watched it again yesterday or 2 days ago for this. So yeah, I really loved it. When you're talking about the rest of the internet, or like the general consensus, I would say like outside of the internet, this is a pretty well regarded movie. I had people that I know at work that know I'm a Superman fan. They're like, "Hey, did you see the new Superman movie?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
They're like, "Me too. I really liked it." I was like, "Great. Like that's perfect." And then, there were people that were upset, obviously, that the old universe had to die for this one to continue. So there are people upset that they didn't get more Henry Cavill. There's people upset
Yeah.
that for that kind of stuff. Some of those people have moved on and embraced this. Some of those people are still upset. But then there's also hardcore Superman fans that do not like some of the changes in this movie that we'll probably dive into. And and that's their thoughts on that. So, I've listened to
Yeah.
so many podcasts after this came out, and I would say
Right.
most liked it. If you look at the cinema score, I think that might be a B plus. But and then there were, um, good Rotten Tomatoes score, all that kind of stuff. So I think I would say most people like this, but there are, obviously people that
Yeah.
are
The
hardcore,
underbelly.
faithful,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
what they think the mythos is.
Yeah. 83% on the tomato meter with 501 reviews, which is very solid score. 90% on
What's
the
the
popcorn meter.
That's what I was gonna say. What's the popcorn?
Yeah,
90? That's pretty
which
good.
is
Yeah.
yeah, 25,000 verified ratings, from fans of you and I alike. So it, uh, uh, everything that I had listened to, same kind of thing, and I think I saw this too. I went back and watched, like, first reactions to this, one from the Escape Pod, but, like, I forget what other one I'd watched. I'd watched a couple
Did
of
you watch
YouTube
Soups
videos
and
on them.
Sabers first reactions?
I did yes, I did I did listen to you guys. Um, and I do feel like, in your sentiment too in that episode too was like, and like you've said now is like I liked it. I didn't, kind of love it, but now as I've watched it more and more, I've really grown fond to it. And like I think it's the same thing because everything that I've listened to, the immediate reaction has been like, "Oh, I really liked it. I thought it was a good start, but I think it could have been better." And like that's every movie. So it's always funny when that's the critique is like, "Oh, it could have been better." Well, everything could be better. Like, of
Back to the
course,
Future
like
is perfect. Yeah, I know.
well, yeah. So never seen it, but yes, but like I do. I feel like this movie, the more and more I've looked at it now, I think the recency bias and also the recency hesitancy has kind of worn off, and it really does feel like a good start. And I wanted to ask you one more question on that. Like, are you excited that this is, I mean, James Gunn now he started this and now the DCU is in its infancy and really starting to take shape. Are you excited about this being, I mean, this is the equivalent, a lot of people are saying this is the equivalent of obviously like Iron Man. Like
Mhm.
this is their beginning. Are you excited about what's coming with DCU? Did you feel like it was needed like a course, not really course correction, but like taking it in a different way? Do you think like it's in good hands with James and co?
I do. I think that this was severely needed for look, the DC brand was in the toilet when we're talking about movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when they were turning out good movies, people were burnt too much by what had come from the reaction that people had to like Batman vs Superman and
Yeah.
Justice League and and Suicide Squad, that it is kind of tarnished the brand a bit when it was on a high after the Dark Knight trilogy, right? The Dark Knight trilogy comes out, everybody's like, DC's where it's at. And then Marvel kind of turns the tide with the MCU. It then DC kind of got the tide turned on them because they started getting bad reaction. Like at the one point, they were at the top of the like, I mean, the Nolan films were highly
Yeah.
regarded. They were
Right.
Oscar nominated stuff when you're talking about like acting and all that kind of stuff.
Everybody was talking about that. That was zeitgeist with them. Like when
Yeah.
Dark
I
Knight and
mean,
Dark Knight
there's an
Rises were like
Office episode where 3 characters dress up as Heath Ledger's Joker. I mean,
right, yeah,
it was at an all-time high, but then things were really turning down where again, like I said, even if they were making good movies, they weren't
yeah,
they weren't getting, and even this one I feel like is a little hurt by what has come before. It ended up making like 600 million some, which is I would say good for like a starting movie, but
mhm,
um people would think usually a Superman movie would be making more than that. But again, I think if you look at they had to work on a decade almost of movies that were just not well liked by casual
yeah,
audiences, by critics, by everybody except for hardcore fans, really. So they really had to
yeah,
turn that narrative around. I think this is a good start because I like what James did here in the sense of we don't need the origin. Everybody knows Superman's origin. We do not need to see it again. We've seen it in like 2 films, plenty of TV shows. We don't need to see it again. So kind of being able to start and hit the ground running with this world already existing, with Superman already existing, and just know that all of these characters already exist and we can just check in on them at any time feels good. Because if we had to do like a Superman movie and then wait for the sequel to do like another Superman movie and then have like a solo Batman and have to have a solo Wonder Woman, a solo Aquaman, like they were trying to do originally before we can even get to something like a full universe. I don't think superhero movies have that much time left in the zeitgeist, right? Like they'll always be around, but like there has been a shift compared to like the Endgame period where everybody was going to see superhero movies, where people are not going to see them as much. So I don't know if you have that much time to do the build up to each character. So kind of being able to start right into it, and just give us what I think is a very like accurate comic, Superman story. This kind of feels like a comic when you open it up and it just says, here, you're plopped in right now. Superman just lost a battle. Boom, you're going. Like it kind of just goes off from there and runs. And I think that is more that was needed. That's why I can't really compare it to Iron Man in that regard, because Iron Man really is like that. MCU got the chance to do those MCU had the chance to do all those origins to build up to Avengers, but this they don't really have the time for it now, I feel like.
That's a really great point. I've never really thought of that. Like, and I always wondered what the fatigue was centered around, because like you said, and I think, I don't know if I'd call it necessarily like yes, fatigue, but also I would say Marvel really, really dropped the bag. I mean, they really dropped the bag on it. And I think it was because they thought that they could duplicate and replicate the same kind of experience that fans had when they were watching, like you said. But I think they made the mistake of going into, and multiverse is always really tough, just because you can pretty much say everything is moot point, like everything else doesn't matter. And I think that's where it's been like time travel has always been kind of shaky for people, because like you can erase things, or things can be altered, and then you could also say, well, now they just have the power to go back in time anyway to fix it. Like they're just going to rewrite it. Like, and that's where I think Dooms and them are headed. Like I think that's where it's headed, and I think it's so difficult. Whereas I think you're right. I think James did a great job here, where I think he thought, you know what, people really do know Superman that are into the comics. We're not going to give the origin story. And right away we get that from the jump. I mean, and I saw this as as an honest critique, Jordan. People go, I felt like I started mid movie. And I was like, I think that was planned. Like, I think this is what was planned from the get-go. Is we don't really, I mean, through Jordan, I don't know much about, I don't read the comics. I don't know a whole lot about, but I know enough about Superman. Like I was telling you, that I knew that he had Kryptonian parents, that their idea was to take over, or like that he had parents in Smallville that were much more parent like than his biological. I knew that. I knew Crypto. I knew Lex Luthor and what he was. I know Lois Lane. We know this so much. Like same thing with like Batman and them, like the Justice League, and like you know a lot about them just because of your passings with other fans like you, and especially me with you, because you are. But I think you hit it right on the head. The nail right on the head is people. They're not tired of the DC universe. They're like, most people like me, more casual, are just like, what the hell is that? Like, what's going on over there? Which is what I felt watching DC movies. Like the only one I ever really got into was Batman, because he was so unique in the way they present him. And it wasn't ever origin of Batman. Yes, you got Batman Begins, but like you've got more of like, here's who Batman has always been. Let me tell a story. And that's what I like about it.
Yeah, I mean, this. I think the opening crawl is all you need, right? It says, 3 centuries ago, the first superpowered beings known as metahumans appeared on Earth, ushering in a new era of gods and monsters. 3 decades ago, an extraterrestrial baby was sent in space to Earth and adopted by Kansas farmers. 3 years ago, the baby, now grown, announced himself as Superman, the most powerful metahuman of all. 3 weeks ago, Superman stopped the country of Boravia from invading Jarhampur, sparking controversy around the world. 3 hours ago, a metahuman called the Hammer of Boravia attacked Superman in the city of Metropolis. 3 minutes ago, Superman lost a battle for the first time. So, one, I like how it's just 333. I think that is
it's great,
awesome. And then just like setting the stage, that gives you all the information you need to enter this story right at the beginning. Because then you'll see the rest of the fight with the hammer after this, right?
Yep.
Like you don't need I don't know how else you can introduce this without the crawl, I guess is kind of what it is. Because that would be a whole other like hour of the movie, I feel like, if you had to do all of that stuff.
Yes. And I feel like it does do something that its counterpart in Marvel does not do as well, is catching people that are casual up on the fact of, like, when Marvel does things, they just insert and it's like, here, figure it out. And it's like, for a casual, like, especially when I was watching, what was it that I was watching? It was it was Deadpool and Wolverine. There were many times where I'm like, what the hell was that? Like, who's that? Like, it doesn't really do a good job of introducing. I don't need an origin, Jordan, but I need an introduction sometimes. I think people feel that with Marvel, where they're aggravated, like, you don't introduce these people at all. Whereas I have felt that with DC movies, they do a really nice job of, like, Jordan, this allows for, like, James Gunn to take this version of Superman. They could go back in time and tell the Smallville stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like they could go either direction with him and tell things. Whereas Marvel,
they could go
everything's
300 years
progressing
ago.
forward. Yes.
Right? They could go 300 years ago and tell the first metahuman story if they wanted to.
Yes.
And he's kind of said as much, Gunn. He said this is more like Star Wars or Game of Thrones than Marvel.
Yeah.
In the sense of he can pick out different time periods in this and tell a story. He doesn't need to stick to present day, where Marvel kind of got themselves is that Iron Man announced himself as the first hero. So you can really only go forward. But we know that Captain America's in the past, right? And then but he was more of a military figure. But then when it gets to the 90s and they're like, oh, we have to fit Captain Marvel in here. So they have to do like a background story, but kind of explain why she was never known to anybody, because they already set up that Iron Man was the first one. So he gave himself like 300 years of time that he can tell any story if he wants to.
Yes. So kind of launching into this, I wanted to give my first reactions to this as I'm sitting here watching this and the scrolls going across, right? And I'm picking up mid battle, and just the imagery, like starting in an Antarctica, starting in his lair, and understanding like he's mid battle and he's beat to hell, and then you get the introduction of Crypto right away. I mean, I think ultimately I'm like, all right, this has a good feel to it. Like, this feels, and you know what, I honestly, and I don't know if this is because I know who it is, but it totally gave Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, it totally gave that, like, you could feel its lightheartedness, but also like shit's getting real. Like, this is getting real quick. And I just love the introduction of it. And it felt much more, and I don't know if this is kind of a DC thing or a Superman thing. It did feel a little bit more light than like sometimes Iron Man can feel. Like, Iron Man, while it does have light moments, it doesn't really lean. It leans more into like who Downey is and who he was in the past, and it leans more into how he interacts with the character. This felt much more of like Superman felt upbeat. Like, it feels very light in the way that it is, but also the heavy moments don't feel as heavy, I think, as maybe sometimes Marvel leans into. Like, and I know Dark Knight's totally different, but like in other DC entities will be different. But this felt, like you said, it felt very optimistic. Superman, like, this is a great start. Like, this is a person who just oozes positivity in a way that sometimes it can be detrimental to himself. But like, also, he knows there are complex things that he's going to have to deal with, and there are it's much more politically based and stuff like that. So I don't know. I just felt right away, I was like, man, this has a really good feel to it. And then just the beauty of that whole thing. Yes, of his Fortress of Solitude, like coming up out of the ground. I was like, this is so pretty. I was like, I have it on our background now. I was like, I need a photo. And have you seen the photo, Jordan? It's like of him. It's a really small picture of him, and then it's the fortress and stuff. I was like, I need that framed. Like, it's so cool the way that it looks.
This?
Yes, that is it.
That very well because of the green screen. But this is from the art book, which I have.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So right away, I was like, this is stunning. I mean, just the way that this looks. So
yeah, the CG is great. This is an actual set that they go into. This is an actual set that they made.
It's remarkable.
Which looks great. He's so good at building sets and getting, like, having the right team to build his sets and to mix that with CG to make it, look
That's a
phenomenal.
good point. When I think back to it, though, like when I think about Guardians and what he's done before, it's that same thing. Like it feels galactic, but it feels like we're in sets, like we're in
Yes. Yep.
physical sets where so much of like Strange in them are CGI. You can see it right away. It's like, okay, that's
Right. Right. Right.
definitely a lot of CGI. And obviously with Guardians you have to do it, and sometimes with Superman you have to do it. But this felt that's a really great point. This all felt. I mean, even when they go into the
Like it was
pocket
like you could
universes,
touch
like
it. You could almost like
yeah,
feel like you could touch anything in this movie because it is,
yes,
uh, made on sets. I
yeah,
definitely recommend anybody that wants to read this art book. I mean, like they talk about the people that he's had working for him for like the suits and the sets, or the people that worked with him on like almost every Guardian movie onward that he's made. So like
yeah,
because one of the biggest sets he's made is probably the Fortress, but also he did that Nowhere set for Guardians 3 and the holiday special.
yes,
That is
yep.
huge, and that feels
It's
good too.
beautiful too.
Like
Yep.
it's a nice set.
Yeah.
But what you make of the Superman robots and everything here?
I don't want to keep comparing it to Marvel, but it felt very Jarvis like we were getting introduced to
Mm-hmm.
those bots, and um, right away I was just like, I like the way they look, I like the way they interact, and you know what I like too is that they feel like people, like they really do feel like they're looking out for him, and it feels much more like a personal connection to him rather than just being robotic. And you get that at the not spoiler alert because everybody's probably seen
The
this at
end,
this point,
yeah.
but like when Greg, or is it Greg or Gregory that he
Gary,
calls him?
yeah,
Like I want to be
Gary.
called Gary. That's what it is. I want to be called Gary, but it feels very personal. And again, we get a very lovely picture of Bradley Cooper, and I'm like, man, I'm feeling Guardians all over again. But yes, the whole thing, the whole setup, Jordan, it felt like a luxurious layer in the Alps somewhere. And
One thing I'll say
I
too
just
is the robots are a mix of practical and CG. So they
are they
made
really?
those real robots, yeah. And
That's
then
awesome.
I really like that, like you said, they have that personal connection, but they almost think that they don't. Like Four,
Yeah.
or later as as Gary,
Or
right,
yeah.
is saying,
Yeah.
like, don't thank us, we won't be able to appreciate it. But then he looks at the new robot and she's like, he looked
Yeah,
at me. So like obviously they do have some sort
they
of
do.
feeling, especially that he wants to
Yes.
have a name, like
Yeah.
uh they do have some sort of feeling for him.
Yes. Um, Learning that Superman has a lot of different weird powers, also floored me. Like the
Yeah, like
whistle
what did
and
you what
the
did you know of his powers?
none. I can tell you
You
the
knew flight. Did
um
you knew the heat vision?
I I knew Flight, and I felt like Heat Vision was like a different version of him for some reason. Like I felt
Oh,
like
okay.
that would have been later on, like we'd have been introduced later on. It did feel like a quick progression to all of a sudden his Heat Vision. He's just annihilating all of these. What are they, like the war
Raptors.
robot? Like
Yeah.
yeah, the Raptors coming down out of the sky, and there's thousands of them, and he just all of a sudden is like, oh, watch this. Whereas like he has a real hard time fighting against like the hammer at the beginning, and it's like I don't understand, like, why was it so hard? You know what I mean? But this version of a villain, though, Jordan, for me, was very fascinating. It was almost AI-ish, almost like he was, the master puppet. Like
Mm.
the hammer's controlled by the moves that Lex and his that one really was like, what? Like this is crazy because you know the Marvel universe, the villains oftentimes operate in the shadows, where I feel like DC, the villains exist in the society. Like that's what blows my mind is like how much you see the villains interact with civilians in DC movies compared to what you see in its counterpart. Like the whole thing where Lex is in this tower and he's in this bridge and like he's controlling all the action against Superman. And they all know who Lex Luthor is and how evil this man is, but they don't know what he's evil about. He's kind of like this rich bully, and Superman seems to know of where this is coming from. So it's like it's fascinating to me where we catch up with them. But that whole battle scene where he gets his ass kicked, like I was like, dang, like this is intense. And right away we get introduced to Lex Luthor, who is the actor is escaping my mind, but like
Nicholas Holt.
he is, yes, he is brilliant as Lex Luthor. I was like, man, he's got like that. You don't root for him, but you're like, he's not like the worst of people. Like, I don't know. He's built really well, I think, in this one.
Yeah, he originally auditioned for Superman, Nicholas Hoult.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, and they said, "What would you think about trying out for
Lex.
Lex?" And he said that he, was actually had a thought while he was reading the script originally that he was kind of like that Lex would be fun to play. So
Yeah.
I think he nailed it. I mean, there's so many Lex Luthors, but he is up there along with Michael Rosenbaum from Smallville for me, because
Yep.
This is what Lex Luthor is. He hates Superman with a passion. And nobody really knows that he is, I would say, like evil per se at this point, right? But he is probably what they would consider a rich asshole, I would say, right? But
right.
I don't think that he like anybody else would know that until, obviously the end of the movie they lay out all of his plans that he had done. So now everybody knows what he's done. But I think one thing I really like about this is he was probably like the smartest guy and was probably revered well until Superman announced himself 3 years ago.
Yes.
And then, something kind of flips in him he may have always been evil, but like it's now, why are you able to have all of this strength just because of the sun when I am here, working my tail off to become what I've become,
He
So
does
I thought that very interesting.
He gives a little bit of Bruce Wayne vibes, kind of the way that he is this rich person that's got a lot of money, but also it seems like the civilians aren't like keep him at arm's length kind of thing. They kind of just know him of who he is. Like he's a rich person that does a lot of things with politics, as you would see in most societies. That wouldn't be somebody you'd be like, oh, red flag, that's weird. I mean, nowadays you might, but anybody that's given a lot of money to the government, you'd be like, oh, wait a minute, that's kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, we get introduced to the international incident and conflict that's going on in Moravia. So in this, Jordan, so help me understand this if I'm right. So the Bravian conflict, we're having Superman is framed as this benevolent force by some, but an overreaching for an agent at times. So like they kind of feel like Superman shouldn't be politically aligned, but he kind of is based on how he interacts with the government. Is that right? Like he's aligning himself to the current president.
So essentially what they're thinking, right, is the way I read it, right, is Superman is American in the sense of he lives here, right? He's based in Metropolis.
Yeah.
Why is he getting involved in stopping a war over there?
Yeah.
And you have the other wrinkle of Moravia as a U.S. ally. And Jarianpour used to not really be an ally, but as he says in the interview with Lois, that they've changed, right? They are trying to be better. Now, Superman thinks of it as very simple. People were going to die, so I stopped it, right? But what Moravia is thinking is, why is a U.S. citizen, right, interfering with us? That is almost an act of war from our ally. Why is our ally getting involved in this on the other side? So it's this very nice, complex thing that I think is really interesting when Superman has to deal with this. There was an episode of Superman and Lois, the CW show, where there was a North Korea submarine that was having issues, and Superman saves them and puts them back on North Korea soil.
Okay.
And the government, who Superman worked with a lot, was like, why did you not bring them to us? And he's like, I'm not doing this as an act of politics. I'm doing it because I saved the North Korean sub and put them back home. Like, I'm not going to capture them, right? Like, and that's what kind of Superman is. He just saves the person that's in trouble. He's not going to like if Jarhanpur had probably invaded Baravia, he would have done the same thing, right? If anybody
Right.
is
Yeah.
invading
That's what I
anybody,
was
he would do
thinking.
the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's what I think is so interesting about it, is because then you have to have it gets the government involved in a, well, he's always been good to us and he's been saving people, but why is he inserting himself into this stuff when he shouldn't be?
Right. Yeah, and I wondered too, like as time goes on, as we figure out what's Lex's role in this, and like what his doings do to the war itself and like the conflict itself, then it becomes almost like a moral conflict of like who does he side with, because he also doesn't believe in the fact that Lex Luthor, like Boravia, seems to be using the help of because it is Boravia that's accepting the help of Lex Luthor, right, to take over.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Um, so yeah, that it is. It's an interesting dynamic, like a political conflict, but also like Superman feels like the peacekeeper amongst all conflicts across the globe, even though he's in Metropolis and he's supposed to be, this American hero, this American soldier. But also, you can see too, Jordan, though, like early on when he's having these problems, when he's not winning, when he loses his first fight, when he starts to get framed for just kind of being as DC often has done, from what I gathered, like, but also same kind of thing Spider-Man did. Like, he is framed kind of as this vigilante who's kind of just doing his own thing and not really looking out for the people, but more so looking out for himself or his political beliefs and ideals, where he's able to protect himself or protect a certain entity, where he's not really looking out for the best interest of humankind. He's looking more, but then this all stems from that video. People have seen it obviously, but the video of his parents talking to him, which he used to heal himself in different instances, but it kind of breaks up at the end when his parents, this really threw me, Jordan, because I was like, I kind of knew that like his parents had sent him to take over Earth kind of thing. But like this threw me when it was like, it was basically like, nah, your parents lied to you. Like this video was used to lie to you. Your parents really wanted you to come over to take over mankind on Earth. And I was like, huh, that was not where I thought that was headed. I was like, oh.
Well, that's actually some of the controversy, I'll say,
Yeah.
is in most continuities, his parents send him here to do good and to just to save his life from Krypton exploding. This upsets some people because they think it doesn't that it's kind of slandering the Kryptonian side of him and propping up the Earth side of him. But what I will say is this has been done in comics before. It was also a big part of Smallville for the first couple seasons there, where the Jor-El was kind of a dick and stuff like that. But I think it's fine after having however many Superman movies we've had, 4, 5, 6, like 6 or 7 Superman movies, to have a different take on things. So I liked this change. It didn't like bother me really, because now I did think originally that maybe the message would be fake. They do go out of their way to say several times this is the real part of the message. It's been verified. So I don't think they're going to back out of that now. But I do have questions on maybe how that will affect somebody like his cousin,
Right.
who makes an appearance at the end. So I'm assuming, we're going to get more Kryptonian background through her and her film coming out this year. So who knows if there's more to say about that or not. But it was a very controversial decision that people did not like, and that's one of the main criticisms I've seen of the movie.
Yeah. Which I totally get, but it did. I was like, what? I was like, that floored me. Wasn't ready for that. I do like that it sets up, especially the ending. I thought it set up the ending really nicely with when they're showing him again, footage of when he says, put my parents back on, and it's his parents that took care of him in small. Like, I loved that, because I thought, even if you had problems with, and I'm not most people on the internet, I'm pretty positive about things they try and land it. And I thought they landed that pretty well, where it was like, no, like, here's actually the people that raised you, who all of your morals and values came from. Like your Kryptonian parents, none of your values or morals came from them. Like none of
just
them.
your powers. Yeah.
Right. So that's not, that's where I thought they did that beautifully. Which that gave me chills at the end. I was not expecting that. That was a great little a twist there. But Jordan, just over the course of the movie, I didn't really want to go scene by scene because obviously everybody's kind of seen it, but I did want to talk about certain moments. The Lois Lane and Clark, I feel like really that whole scene where they're in the kitchen felt
in the interview.
Oh yeah, felt so good, and yet also just gave so many complexities to both of the characters of like, who Lois Lane is and who she serves versus who, Superman and Clark Kent serve. And like, it just, I don't know. And plus I love the apartment. I was like, I need that bookshelf like yesterday. But I love that they set it up this way because Jordan, I don't know how many superhero movies I've watched where every single one of them, somebody's trying to figure out their identity. Like the person they love the most or are closest to don't know their identity until, obviously 2 or 3, the sequels. So I love that we're jumping in right away and Lois knows who he is. Cause at first I was kind of like, does she know? Like, it seems like she knows, but like doesn't know. And then bam, I was like, oh, she knows. Like, this is 100% Superman talking to Lois Lane, which I thought was really great. But I mean, just kind of that relationship. Like, how do you feel like she plays as Lois Lane? I forget the actress's name too. I'm bad with
Rachel
actresses'
Brosnahan.
names.
Yeah.
Yes. But how did you feel about Lois Lane?
I think she is probably my favorite Lois Lane.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she nailed it. Funny story is on our podcast. We were following the news as the movie was progressing.
Yes.
And they had, I think, it down to 3 people for her. And the trades were reporting it was Rachel Brosnahan, I think Emma Mackey, and somebody else. And I was like, I was like, Rachel Brosnahan is her. Like I had seen her in House of Cards. Some people have seen her in the Marvelous Miss Maisel on Amazon. But like just looking at her and also just knowing how she was from what I'd seen her in, I was rooting for her to get the role. So then when it was announced that she got the role, I said, thank God. And kind of called it. Same thing with David Cornsweet. It was down to him. I think they mentioned Nicholas Hoult and somebody else. And I said, I want it to be David Cornsweet because he looks like Superman. Like, oh my God. Like, and so I kind of got all of my casting once, like, that I was rooting for each person that they were, so I feel I take a little bit of pride in that. And then the fact that she did kill it, I think, because she's very good in this, but it's also like, this is one of the best that Lois has been written in the sense of, this apartment scene here where it's like a 10-page scene in the script, which you don't get a lot in superhero movies, of this like dinner date. Also, then this like interview scene.
Yeah.
That takes this long of time in the movie, right? Usually people will be like, all right, cut that and get more action in there or something. But we get this nice scene where we get to see them all lovey, and then the table turns when she is that Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, that she's not going to let him off easy. She's kind of showing him like, before this, Clark was getting all of the Superman interviews, and she's like, people are going to put that together. Also, like, it's not ethical, so she's worried about the ethics of it. And then she's showing him what a real interview would be like if Superman dropped down and interviewed with a world-class reporter, and she's not going to let him off easy. This upsets him because he's like, hey, I thought this was going to be like this nice like foreplay interview type thing.
Yeah.
They were feeling it. It's their 3-month anniversary, right? He's made dinner for her. And he's like, yeah, I'll let you interview me. He probably thinks it's going to be this cute
Oh, he definitely did.
thing.
Yep.
And he gets upset because he feels like she's attacking. And even on stuff that he knows she agrees with. And she's like, I have to ask this, though. Like, this is what a journalist would do. And, you know, it ends with them both kind of walking out and their relationship kind of up in the air at that point. But I think this scene is one of the highlights of the movie, but also just I think Rachel Brosnahan really did a great job in it.
No, you hit every point. I did. I thought this was. I mean, this was one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie. Just because I think like you said, I think he thought it was going to be more lighthearted, and he gets angry by her continuing to push that boundary of like, who are you? Like, what do you stand for? And I think almost where he felt like his morals were questioned or his values were being questioned, and he was trying to play it political. But again, I think that's ultimately what he was trying to do, was just trying to play it safe, and she was not going to do that. Alrighty. Moving on to the Justice Gang, Jordan. I had questions. I was like, who are these people? What is a little bit of the background? I still don't know it too much because I mean, obviously, it would have taken some looking up. But I was like, I don't know who these. I know it's Mr. Terrific, I believe, right?
Yep.
And then the other two, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna need Jordan to give me a better. So, are these? Do they exist outside of like his world, or like what? Where did they come from? Is my original question, I guess.
These are DC comic characters. So they're called the Justice Gang in this, but they're a stand-in for what is known in the comics as the Justice League International.
Okay.
Maxwell Lord, who is played by James Gunn in this, at the very end when he says, the things that liberals and conservatives can agree on is that Lex Luthor sucks.
Right.
He is the one that funds the Justice League International in the comics. And in the movie here, it's the Justice Gang. The reason I think the name change is because the Justice League doesn't exist yet in here. So they needed something close to that, but they can't name it Justice League International if there's no Justice League of America or Justice League, right? So I think that's why they went with Justice Gang, is to try to get the same sort of vibe. Guy Gardner is the Green Lantern in this. His first appearance was in Green Lantern 59 in 1968.
Okay.
But Green Lanterns, there's multiple of them. The first one was Alan Scott back in the Justice Society days. And then since then they had Hal Jordan. That's who Ryan Reynolds played in the movie.
Yep.
And they are part of what is called a Green Lantern Corps, which each lantern is giving a ring, and they're given a sector, that they're supposed to. They're almost like space cops, if you want to think of it like that.
Yeah.
Almost like the Nova Corps from Guardians,
yes. Yep.
Type of thing.
Yep.
But each lantern gets a ring, and it creates these green constructs of light. So that's what, Guy Gardner uses when he makes the oven mitts, or the thing that blocks the kaiju's face, or the thing that pokes its eye, the middle finger is flipping off the the Baravians. And they are led by the Guardians of the Universe, which is these blue people that live on the planet of Oa. And those are the ones that like kind of pick the lanterns and oversee the Green Lanterns.
Okay.
He's going to appear again. Nathan Fillion's going to appear again in the show called Lanterns, which is an HBO show that's coming out later this year, starring two of the more well-known Lanterns, Jon Stewart. Not the Daily Show Jon Stewart, but a different Jon Stewart.
I was excited, yeah.
And by Hal Jordan. And he's going to be played by Kyle Chandler, actually, Hal Jordan. So a little bit of, good pedigree there with his Friday Night Lights character and stuff. But so they're going to appear again in this, and Nathan Fillion's going to be in that show. They've said that. But essentially all of their powers are always the same with the Green Lanterns. They just have multiple people that are considered Green Lanterns.
Yeah. I was fascinated by them just because I was like, what? When they introduced him, like,
Mhm.
did they just like insert these people like randomly? But then he said Green Lantern. I'm like, okay, no, I know that name. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this makes sense now. But I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was like, who are these people? Like they just show up. Like, are they some kind? I thought they were. To be honest with you, I thought they were those people that kind of like in Batman, where they think they have powers but they don't. Like they try to help Superman, but Superman's like, no, like
Mhm.
leave me alone. That's what I first thought was happening. But then once he started to use his powers and the little balls that he uses, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
so Mr.
different. So
Terrific is a like I would say kind of like a Batman in the sense of he's a rich person that owns a company that is very very smart, very very smart guy, Michael Holt. Um his first appearance was in Spectre 54 in June 1997, but he runs a team in the comics called the Terrifics.
okay.
That team also had Metamorpho, who we'll talk about in a little bit, but
Yeah.
um, he is a tech genius, billionaire type guy. Um, and Hawk Girl, there's been numerous Hawk Girls. This one is Kendra Saunders. She appeared in JSA Secret Files 1 in 1999, but there's different Hawk Girls throughout time and stuff. So um, this one is just more of like the, I guess, more normal Hawk Girl. There's one that's like from Thangaria, like what is it, Thangaria, which is in space. Then there's one that's like consistently like her and her husband Carter continue to find each other. They can almost every time they die, they're reborn in
Mhm.
another body type thing, or and they continue to find each other and find love with each other throughout like decades and centuries and stuff like that. So this one is, we believe, not that type of backstory for Kendra Saunders. So, but yeah, her powers are essentially she wields a mace and she has wings.
Yeah. Something they did really cool in this that like I was like, I mean, I guess I get how they do it. They have a camera strapped to their heads when they do this, but also like, or not strapped to their head, but like out in front of them when they do flying scenes. Because
Mm-hmm.
Hawk Girl and Superman fly a lot. They do a great job of showing what that looks like from the vantage point of like you were right in
Right in
front of
front.
Superman. Yeah, it's really cool. And something that I felt was really cool. In one of the final battles, I think it's Superman knocks out one of the Raptors, and like, and it he hits him in the teeth and the teeth hit the
Oh
camera,
yeah, and
and I
hit the
was like,
camera.
that was so cool. Like that effect, I was like, that was really cool.
Yeah.
But the reason why I asked you that was like I was like, obviously this is setting up for characters that'll probably exist in other projects down the road as they're starting to
Mm-hmm.
kind of get into this universe. And I'm assuming that these actors and actresses sign on for different, just like Marvel, they'll probably sign on for different years to do different movies and projects that they're working on, or however they do that. But I was like, I wonder if I was like, I wonder who's going to have more of a say. And then right away, Mr. Terrific steps up in that role when he goes with Lois to find out
Yeah.
where they're hiding Superman after Superman's been framed. And Jordan, they take him to a pocket universe, which was a new concept to me, obviously, getting into this world. And we meet a character here, Metamorpho, who is fascinating. Like, I was enthralled with this and this whole build up. And then when they're taking Superman through and they're showing him the monkeys working on like the
Yeah.
different algorithms and things like that, and
That's
like
a great
tweeting at him,
reference
like
to how Twitter and social
yes,
media is nowadays.
the monkeys up there screaming at this thing, and he's like, "Screw Superman!" Like, and then they show Crypto, and they're using Crypto to try to get as much power as possible. And then they take him to what is like this pocket universe, like Joe Goldberg type prison, where everybody's in like this glass box, and they meet Metamorpho, who Jordan is like an element. Like, what is he's like a metahuman, but like
Yeah.
he's got like elements that he can morph into.
So I have some fun stuff about this. So this is Rex Mason, also known as Metamorpho, the Element Man, which is what Lex calls him. His first appearance goes back to The Brave and the Bold 57 in January of 1965.
Jeez.
He was dating a businessman and rich guy daughter, right? And his name is Simon Stagg. So if you notice when uh, when Superman gets like the message after saving and helping with the kaiju
Yeah.
with the Justice Gang, the message starts playing,
Yeah.
and he goes away and he goes into a building called Stag Industries. That is what
Okay.
Simon Stagg owns. So there's actually a little thread
Gotcha.
here with Simon Stagg and Metamorpho, but um, because he was like secretly dating Simon's daughter Sapphire, and uh, Simon didn't like that, so he kind of tried to set up this plot to kill Rex, and it ends up backfiring and makes him into Metamorpho.
Okay.
Um, Now, his son Joey is Joseph Mason. He appeared in the comics as well back in 1990, Justice League Europe. He's not typically green. He looks more like, I would say, Metamorpho, but that is the kid of Sapphire, Stag, and Rex. Um, so all that kind of stuff, kind of comes from the comics in the sense of him having a kid. Stag Industries is in this movie, but also is really related to Metamorpho. And he can just he can. There's different ways in the comics. At some points, he can only produce elements that are in the human body, and in some comics and in this, he can make any element that exists.
Yeah.
So in this, they use him as the kryptonite, since we learned earlier that there's not a lot of kryptonite on the planet anymore.
Yeah.
When Lex is having that meeting with the Secretary of Defense and everything, so they use him to pretty much just be kryptonite, and they're holding his son hostage to make sure that he follows through with doing this.
Yeah. A brutal moment in the Pocket universe when Lex kills, is it the bodega owner or like the guy
Yeah,
that
he's a
Superman
food,
has befriended? Yeah.
Molly.
Yeah. And just like point blank just assassinates him, just takes him out. And it's it was quite a scene. They made Superman look gross in that scene.
Yeah.
As he's like having the life sucked out of him. I was like, gosh, he looks like a wrinkled old man. But yeah, no, I was like, that's a really cool person. I was like, I didn't know what he was or where he'd come from, and I was like, I really like this. And then I was hoping he had a future with them, but then when they do make their escape, which they eventually do make their escape, Metamorpho decides to go with, and they're breaking them all free, essentially. But with the help of Mr. Terrific and Lois Lane, they end up, and Mr. Terrific stays behind to kind of police whatever is happening, the fallout from,
Yeah, he's trying to
because
figure out
obviously,
how to like make sure it's stable
yeah,
or whatever.
right, and then try to close the different Pocket universe because they are afraid of what actually happens, and it creates, what do they call those?
A rift.
It's like a rift in the whole what is it, Metropolis area, but also different areas where that they've had Pocket universes open in the past could cause rifts throughout throughout Earth wherever they exist. But yeah, we get some major conflicts as they do escape, and there's major conflicts at the end of the movie, and some of the best battle scenes that I've seen. They were really cool. The way, especially Ultraman and Superman, which I had another question about. So Ultraman, I got really lost, and like I hadn't had the chance to watch it back twice. So like Ultraman had existed because that's how they get into his into the Fortitude of Sol, or what is it
Fortress,
called?
yeah.
The Yes. Is how they get into there. But like he wasn't there, like he's not the Hammer, right? Like
He is, yeah.
I thought
He
it was okay.
was posing
Okay.
as the Hammer, yeah.
Got you. Okay. That confused me at first because like I was like, I'm very confused. Like I thought he was the Hammer, and then it shows him. And I'm like, obviously there's a man underneath the suit, but then I was also really confused, like, was it the same person? So okay, that makes sense. So Ultraman and Superman are fighting, and Lex Luthor has cloned Superman, so he's gone to different battle scenes and picked up like
Strand of
DNA
hair,
off of
what he
those.
said,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, strand of hair, and he clones him. I guess my question is that do you think that when this all ends, obviously Lex Luthor is taken into custody, and obviously you probably know this, but like we're assuming he's not done, right? Like we're assuming he's got more.
Oh, I have an answer for you. Do you want it now or later?
I was like, I'm confused, huh? Let's do later, just because we'll wrap up kind of like what happens. But
But I'll
Justice
talk.
Gang, Jordan.
Can I
Yeah,
talk a
go
little
ahead.
Ultraman then?
Yeah. I was confused by who
So
Ultraman was, but yeah.
Ultraman is pretty much a mix of a couple different characters in this. So the name Ultraman comes from the comics where it is evil Superman. So
Okay.
he comes from what they call Earth 3. And Earth 3 is where what they're called they have a pretty much an evil Justice League, okay?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Where it is like they have a bad version of Batman called Owlman. They have Ultraman. They have uh what do they have? Superwoman, which is like Lois Lane as a Wonder Woman, Superman type thing. They have a Flash type character. They have all of these like pretty much one-on-one comparisons to the Justice League, but
Okay.
evil. It's just like a world where everything is bad. And instead of introducing Earth 3 and doing all this kind of stuff, what they've done is just use the name Ultraman and pretty much put it on Bizarro. So Bizarro in some versions is a clone of Superman that goes wrong and he is like
Okay.
really dumb. And Lex
Yeah.
makes an allusion to that, saying like, hey, with cloning, now everything's perfect. He may even be dumber than you are if that's possible.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
so it's pretty much they took Bizarro and made him not speak backwards, because in some comics Bizarro speaks like backwards and it's really really not something that works in movies.
Yeah.
And they, put the Earth 3 Ultraman name onto him, and
Okay.
that's how they kind of made into this version of Ultraman.
Okay. Well, then that's good, because I was like, I'm so confused. I was like, I'm pretty sure that was the hammer. I'm very confused.
And I'm
I
sure
was
he
like,
can
okay.
come back. I'm sure he can come back as like a more accurate Bizarro if they want to, because
Yeah.
he gets sent in the black hole, and you can make it where it falls into this other world Bizarro
Right.
verse, or
Another
you could do stuff like
dimension.
that later if you want it. But
Yeah.
so far, I feel like this is our version of Bizarro.
Okay. Yeah, so we get a great scene there. We got Metropolis dividing. We've got all sorts of things happening. The global peril of the split and the rift is tearing it apart. Symbolic destruction. It's not just Metropolis that's splitting; it's genuine. Just everything going wrong in the universe. Justice Gang is taking on the invasion. Bravia's invasion force is halted there by the Justice Gang. Jordan, one of my favorite lines of the whole movie is basically Green
Superman couldn't
Lantern's like,
make it, so you got an upgrade.
well, that yeah, that was a good one. And then when at the end, when it's all said and done, and they're walking along, and Metamorpho's walking with them, and he's like, "Well, just because you think you're not part of this, really. Like this is the Justice Gang."
Right.
Like, and
You
he goes,
want
"Oh,
his ugly mug being
yes,
the face of the Justice Gang?
yeah." And he goes, "I like that name," and he goes,
You're
"Never
in.
mind, you can be you're in, you can be part of this." I was like, that was perfect. Jordan, you know who he reminded me of? The actor that played Green Lantern.
Mm-mm.
He reminds me of Woody Harrelson. The way I had to look it up, because I was like,
I can see it.
that's not Woody Harrelson, but it's kind of like the face and the way he says his lines. I was like, that's not Woody Harrelson, is it? Like he's too big to be Woody, and he looks younger than Woody is. And I was like, I don't
Yeah.
think that's him, but it sounded like him. But of course, it's not. But yeah, I love them, and I was like, I can't wait to see if they're in more. And that's why I asked you. I was like, obviously they're going to be in more. They set them up to be in other things, I imagine. So that'll be cool that he's in a part of a Green Lantern show. But Lex's defeat, you see, Jordan, something that really struck me as odd is Lex Luthor crying. I don't think I've ever seen a villain in one of these cry. I was like thinking, racking my brain, going, Thanos obviously isn't crying. I mean, he has a very deep moment, but Joker would never, right? So you got the Riddler and all them. Like I don't picture any of them crying. So when Lex cries, I was like, I feel bad for him. Like I don't know why, but I feel bad for Lex Luthor, even though the dude just tried to destroy or pretty much destroyed the whole planet and is geopolitically and like he's just an awful person.
Yeah.
But yeah, that struck me as very powerful to see Lex Luthor cry.
He was on the verge of winning. He was so close, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
right.
got to be part of why he gets the tears welling up is
Yeah.
there's that part where Superman is getting choked by the nanites, right?
Yes.
And it
Yeah.
shows him and he's like laughing, he's smiling, he's grinning. He's like,
Yeah.
finally, I've done it. I've won.
Right.
And he's giving his whole speech to Superman about like, I know I'm envious, like I'm not dim, but like you are showing us that we are weak because we are not we cannot do the things you do.
Yeah.
And he sees that as like a threat for humanity, but as a threat for himself as well. If he's being replaced as that alpha male guy
Yeah.
by somebody who is bestowed great power from just the sun and the way his body makes up itself. So he, it's this calling in him that he is being supplanted, but he is also on the verge of winning. He thinks brains beats brawn, right? And it does, but Superman flips that around on him because Luthor gives him this, like I said, he might be even dumber than you are. So that gets into Superman's head, and he says, if I can get Crypto here and knock out the cameras that are watching this, Lex will not be able to relay the information. And since I am smarter than Ultraman, I will be victorious. He will no longer have somebody telling him what move to do because he studied me. He'll lose all connection to that, and I can just fight this guy and win. And so even then, like Lex kind of gives him the key to his own defeat, by just being too cocky and being so close on the verge of greatness, and then get a little bit of tears welling up in the eye there. You also get Crypto doing a little bit of Hulk Loki from the Avengers here and thrashing him around.
Yes. Crypto again showing up at all the right times. I was really confused when he was like, they were asking him, like, I forget who was asking him kind of like who Crypto was and like the origin of the dog, like where the dog come from. He's kind of like
Lois. He says, you have a dog?
Yeah, and he's like kind of like an adopted situation. I was really confused by that line because he's like, I was like, why is he not owning up to this dog? And then it all makes sense at the end. I was like, oh, that makes sense. But just a couple things like as we kind of wrap it up, at least the movie part of it, Superman prevails. And Jordan, like I said, we have a moment where Lex is ushered off into I'm assuming a federal agent's car, but with his proximity and the closeness of I'm assuming, is that the department, is that the who is the guy at the end? That's not the president, that's the
so it's the Secretary of Defense speaking to Rick Flag Sr., which is played by Frank Grillo, who was in the MCU as well. He was Crossbones in the Winter Soldier and everything.
So they give me bad vibes. Like they gave me very bad vibes of like they're in something deeper here, which I feel like sets up another when you have their Superman movie. Like it kind of felt like something's up. Like the way that he smiles at the end, and then but also it feels like Lex Luthor isn't quite done yet either. He's taken away by federal agents. That gives me kind of like he might go to federal prison, but used as some kind of bait or tactic for the government to kind of lure Superman back, because I feel like Superman has gone out of his bounds a little bit here, and the department is kind of like we're gonna have to back you off a little bit. Like I feel like there's some conflict heading in that direction. At least that's the way I felt leaving the movie, like not leaving the movie, but like when I finished watching, I was like, all right, so that's where they're kind of setting up a future of like Lex Luthor will be back. Like if we had a Will Returns and Superman 2 or whatever it might be, we would have got Lex Luthor and the Department of the whatever I keep trying to say.
They're actually called Argus. So that is the Argus is what Rick Flag Sr. is a part of. and he stands for different things throughout the comics, but it's pretty much like a meta human task force to kind of make sure that they're almost like a shield from MCU is essentially kind of what they are.
Okay. So that would give me positive vibes then.
Well, I mean, Shield was overrun by Hydra, so you're not,
true.
you're in, I would say,
in the ballpark somewhere.
Yeah, I have a good I have a good bit for the end here where I'll say what's next, and we can kind of go through where some of these characters may have appeared and what is to come up in the next few films and shows and stuff. But
yeah, we get at the end, we get him back in his fortress of solitude, and he is being healed again. And we get a wonderful nod to a line that was said earlier in the movie, and you and I talked about this through text. I thought it was brilliant, where he said that Lois Lane's like, I didn't strike you kind of a punk rock kind of guy, and he goes, well, Superman is punk rock. Like, it's hip to be. It's kind of like that. It's hip to be Superman. Like, he's not really. He's a very humble person because of his background. Like, I love his parents. Like, his true parents in my heart, Jonathan and Martha Kent. Yes. I feel like they are perfect. I love them so much. I want a whole. I know you're going to say go watch Smallville then, but I want a whole show of Mom, Pa, Kent. But yes, a great ending because you've got you've got 4 saying I want to be called Greg or Gary. Sorry, I keep doing that. And so like Superman's like, sure, yeah, whatever. He's watching his family scenes. He's watching all of his home films. Back when, because he's like, show me my parents again, and it's a great touch. And then punk rocker starts playing, a great nod to him saying that he wanted to be punk rock, and Superman saying, I am punk rock, watch me, which I thought was brilliant. James Gunn, you are a magician with music, as we have seen in your other projects with Marvel. But Jordan, what did you think of that last scene? Because we get a introduction of a certain character, and I'll kind of leave it at that because you can kind of spoil it for me. I know who it is. I did have to look it up. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, I'm pretty sure
you couldn't tell just from it being a girl version with the Superman outfit.
I wanted to be like, okay, like it's definitely Supergirl, right? Like I'm not like there's not another lineage of like this is Wonder Girl, superhuman something. Like I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Supergirl, but I don't know. So yeah, but we get Supergirl and the real owner of Crypto. From what we gather. So
so just a couple things. You have the punk rocker song, which is like you said, a nice little touch. It made me laugh in the theaters, but in like a nice happy chuckle as I was probably holding back tears because it was, you have that moment where she says, you think like I judge everybody, I expect the worst of everybody. You see the humanity in everybody and that it's beautiful. And he says, maybe that's the real punk rock, which is a nice statement its own of like, if you think punk rock is against the grain of the normal, like most people are cynical, especially nowadays.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So having somebody like see the good in everybody is like the punk rock of today.
Very
because
rare.
It's like going against the grain. And then you have that song that's perfect teed up there with, Superman. One you're expecting when they say like, do you want to see the footage of your parents? You're expecting them to say like, no, because you're led to believe it's going to be the Kryptonian ones. And then, so you think he's going to be like, no, play a footage of my parents. But like Gary's already made that change. He's already made the change. It's it's Jonathan and Martha that he's watching. And, which is also ties well to the scene at the farm when he talks to Jonathan and, Jonathan says, parents aren't for telling their children who they're supposed to be. We're here to give you the tools and help you make fools of yourself all on your own. Your choices, your actions are what makes you who you are. And I couldn't be more proud of who you are. He's going to say who you are, but then Martha has to cut in with the stuff going on in Jarhampur. So, just that's probably my favorite scene is the Jonathan and Clark scene.
It's top tier. Yep.
And but having that tie, you not only tie the punk rocker scene, you tie the Jonathan and Clark scene into this last scene.
Yep.
And it makes me like tear up every time now.
Especially because you have a kid now.
Especially now I have a kid, so I'm trying to think. I'm not supposed to tell him who he is. I'm supposed to just give him the tools.
Yeah.
But
that gave me chills, and I'm not even landing. So,
but yeah. So and then you have Supergirl who comes in, and she says she is here to get her dog, and all of this is actually, I would say, like what would typically be in the MCU a post-credit scene, but it actually, I think, is
100%.
I think it's better than a post-credit scene here. Yep. Because what I will say is, I've seen some people say this is like unnecessary setup, but I think it resolves the issue of who Crypto's dog is. You know,
like I alluded to, I was so confused when he.
Yeah, you're confused until she comes in, and
like,
she's laughing as he's throwing her down. He's like, "This is why he has behavioral issues, right?" Like, you know,
yes.
In most iterations, Crypto is Superman's dog, but
I thought so. I was like, I'm pretty sure he was. Yeah.
With the story that is coming up for Supergirl's movie later this year, it makes more sense because it's adapting a comic. It makes more sense for her to be Crypto's owner. So, I'll talk about that in what's next, I guess. But like that is it makes sense for it to be her dog.
Yep. I think you said it all perfectly to kind of wrap that up. The end of the movie, we do get post-credit scenes. We got one right in the middle of the credits of Superman and Crypto looking down on Earth from the space.
Moon,
yeah, I was like, that was really cool, and it was no speaking. It it was just them looking down on Earth.
It's actually it's an allusion to a comic panel from All-Star Superman. As well, so it's sense. a nice little nod to that. But yeah.
It was beautiful. I mean, it looked so realistic, like they were literally on the moon. And then we get a end credit scene, and I like what they're doing here, Jordan. I like that. I think if you're definitely probably coming out of this having seen Marvel. Everybody listening to this has seen all the Marvel stuff, so you're used to what Marvel's end credits look like. But Superman's are so like this one's really cool, where he's sitting there looking at a building with Mr. Terrific. Mr. Terrific. I'm assuming Jordan, had tried to fix the building, and Superman's like. He's having such a hard time because Superman.
It's from entering in. So it's from entering in the code when he stopped the rift, and the rift goes right back together, but it's not perfect,
right?
And that's what Superman is noticing. And Terrific's like, "What? You want me to like redo this?"
Yeah. Superman's like, "Not everything has to be perfect, I guess." Sure, whatever, leave it. It's such a good scene because you can just see Mr. Terrific like. Gotta be shitting me. Like, really?
And then Superman being like, I can be such a jerk sometimes.
Yes. I love that because Mr. Terrific walks away and then you're left with Superman just standing there like, God, I can be a jerk sometimes. Just the wholeness of Superman, Jordan. I again, like you and I've talked about, I think that's what draws me so much to Spider-Man. And I have not, Jordan, I'm now obsessed with Superman because of how much I've loved just the pureness of what Spider-Man stands for. And now I've got this other character. Now I'm interested in Smallville. Now I want to see it all. So thank you for that. I remember texting you going, man, I've heard so many good things about Superman that I'm excited to launch into this. And Jordan, I'm even more excited that I'm getting into a new world and a new realm, a new universe, and learning all of these things because I don't know anything really outside of what I've mentioned before with the DCU. So I wanted to ask you, what's next? Like it seems like it's setting up such a perfect. Obviously, we've got Supergirl coming out in June, particularly around somebody's birthday.
I
was gonna say, particularly really on the day that Jordan was birthed. Not in the future, but Jordan. Happy birthday to Jordan! Supergirl's gonna come out in theaters. I'm assuming you're gonna see that opening night / day, whatever happens up there.
I'm deciding if I want to do the 25th, which would be the Thursday showing, or if I want to do it on my actual birthday. That's what I want to figure out. So
So what's next, Jordan? I saw the trailer. I watched a trailer before we jumped on here. The line that really stood out to me, and what I think we get with Supergirl, and I'm excited about this to learn more, is she says the line that Lois uses as well, where she says something similar to the line effects of like, Superman is all about the moral and the good in people. I see the truth in people.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, it's like, that's enticing.
Yeah, so Supergirl is really set up in this movie. This story that they're adapting, it's based off a comic called Woman of Tomorrow. And in the story that they're adapting, it's a really recent comic. I haven't read it yet. I'm saving it for before the movie. We're going to do it on the show. And I figured I'd just wait until we're doing our build up to read it.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Chris read it. A lot of people have really spoke highly of this comic, but it's mentioned in this movie that she goes to red sun planets because of their metabolism. She can't get drunk on Earth. So that's how she, like, it's her 21st birthday in the comic. In the movie, it's going to be her 23rd. And she is celebrating by getting drunk on red planets, and kind of gets caught in this whirlwind adventure while she's out in space.
Okay.
So people very Guardians vibes because obviously it's taking place in space and everything. But Supergirl's movie is going to take more place off Earth. Crypto is kind of like her dog in that comic, or like is a companion of hers in the story, which is why it makes sense for her to be Crypto's owner in this universe, is because they're using this story without it being like, I guess, Clark being like, yeah, take my dog, like it just makes sense to streamline it, make it
does.
her dog. So yeah, we have Supergirl coming up next. That's most likely the next thing coming out because Lanterns is scheduled for late summer, so I'm assuming that's going to be August. That's when Peacemaker season 2 premiered last year, so I'm assuming it's going to be around there. So this is where it's a little tricky. There is, Peacemaker appeared in this movie, John Cena, when, Superman flips out at Lex and the footage shows up on the news, and, Peacemaker's there. So when James was fired from Marvel between Guardians 2 and 3, DC immediately went in and scooped him up, because they were smart. And they're like, oh, these are just joke tweets. Like, we're going to scoop up the guy who has 2 of the biggest hits for Marvel, and we're going to give him whatever he wants to do.
As they should, yeah.
And what he wanted to do was the Suicide Squad. 2021's the Suicide Squad. So if you liked this, and if you like Guardians, I would say you should watch the Suicide Squad, because it is actually one of my favorite superhero movies. It is a rated R Guardians, essentially, right? In that sense, like, so while that was originally made for the last universe that was around, they've kind of worked it as being part of this one. So none of the big heroes make an appearance in that movie. It's very loosely connected to the previous universe, that it kind of works as it could work in this universe. So you could watch it, you could not watch it. Everything James has said is you can watch or not watch whatever you want in this universe, and it'll still make sense. So that's his goal. But the Suicide Squad then gave birth to a show called Peacemaker, and it's a really great TV show. Season 1 did take place in the alternate universe that they called the DCEU. But at the beginning of Peacemaker Season 2, they explain it away as being in this universe by just editing a couple scenes in the previously on segment. And it works very, very well that now it just enters this universe. And the Justice Gang just appeared in the premiere of that episode as well. So, Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl and Maxwell Lord appeared in that season. A couple of Lex Luthor's goons appear in Peacemaker Season 2, as the whole fallout is about this Metropolis rift and kind of Rick Flag Sr. trying to track down Peacemaker, who also has some sort of tech like this. So they're worried that it's going to happen again, so that's why they're going after him. So that stuff has kind of happened, and it does kind of set up what is next. But like I said, James said you can watch it or not watch it. I recommend watching it to anybody listening just because those are very good James Gunn projects. He nails the music in all of them like he usually does. He lands the character and the heart, all that kind of stuff is really great. What actually kicked off the DCU was a cartoon called Creature Commandos, which is it follows Rick Flag Sr. from, in this movie, played by Frank Grillo, but it's a cartoon and it has him kind of assembling a team of creatures to take down a foreign entity type thing. It is kind of loosely connected to the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, but it kind of you can kind of see the wiggle, like if you watch it, anybody listening on. Again, you don't have to, in the sense of like it doesn't explain anything that's going on, but like it's just fun to see some of these characters pop up again in different things. So that's kind of how you get kind of Rick Flag Sr.'s background. But what's next? They start filming in 2 months. It's essentially a Superman sequel. It's not called Superman 2. It is called Man of Tomorrow. And it is a Lex Luthor Superman team-up movie where they will have to work together to defeat Brainiac, one of Superman's big villains. They are getting ready to film, like I said, so that's coming out next year. I'm very excited for it because one of my favorite parts of this movie is Lex and Superman. And knowing that they are going to have another interaction and that they are going to continue to butt heads and have to team up, be forced to team up, is something that I think is really interesting. And I assume the Justice Gang will be in it because there's rumors it's basing itself off of a comic called Panic in the Sky.
Okay.
And it's a 1992 comic where Brainiac is trying to do this, and like Superman teams up with Lex Luthor Jr. It's a whole other story. It's not regular Lex Luthor, but he has to team up with like Lex, and he teams up with like the Justice League, and this Green Lantern, Guy Gardner, is in it, and it just seems like it is going to probably not be like a full-on adaptation, but just some basis, some themes, some stuff like that they will kind of take from that, in the sense of, I assume he's going to team up with the Justice Gang and Lex to try to take on Brainiac together. So maybe Supergirl, right? We don't really know. But that is what's next. There's also Clayface coming out in September 11th, our other friend's birthday.
I was going to say, yeah.
They love releasing
I've got 3 friends that have that birthday. Yeah, what's going on? There better be one on January 13th, or I'm going to be really
not
upset.
Usually a movie coming out in January.
That's offensive.
But it's a rated R body horror, $40 million movie that is about the Batman villain Clayface. So that is coming up this year as well. Again, that might be for people that like horror. I'm going to go see it just because it's connected to everything, but it's going to be its own little isolated story, not really interacting with this. But my big excitement is, for so long we've had so much focus on Batman that it's nice having Superman kick it off. We have Supergirl this year, and then we have an immediate follow-up with Man of Tomorrow next year. So 3 years in a row of the Super family hitting the screen is very exciting.
Yeah, it feels very Iron Man-esque, because that's kind of what it feels Iron Man did. Was around at the beginning quite a bit, and then they kind of shift.
Yeah, Iron Man, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, Avengers, Civil War.
Yep. There's so where are we with just one other question, because I saw this on here. So Batman, it says the Batman 2. Is that so? The original Batman that took place before Gunn started.
Yeah.
Was that the case? Okay, so this would be, so it'll be a sequel to that, but it'll start to be in this realm of like,
it's not going to be connected.
Okay.
It's not going to be. The guy who's directing that did not want it to be part of a connected universe.
Okay.
So James Gunn is working on their own separate Batman for this, but obviously he doesn't want to release that around the Batman Part 2. So He will be waiting.
I lied to you, and I'd forgotten that this existed. I was a huge Teen Titans fan. Huge Teen Titans
Oh, like
fan.
the cartoon?
And I saw that being rumored or was going to be part of this.
Yeah,
Is that still a go?
we don't know too much about it in the sense of
Yeah.
they did have a writer working on it.
Yeah.
She also wrote the Supergirl movie,
Okay.
but they have her prioritizing a Wonder Woman movie right now. So
Okay.
I think Titans is on the back burner a bit, but
Yeah.
we'll see. I assume that look, everything's also up in the air with the whole Netflix, Paramount, WB stuff
Yeah,
going
that's
on.
true.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just happy with what we're getting so
Yeah.
far.
I did wonder, like as time has gone on, like this would be a perfect addition, and I just, I'd be okay with this just because of what Netflix has done in the past. But I don't know. I think Netflix would be dying to have because now Daredevil belongs to Disney, so it's like
Mhm.
that was their superhero. I feel like Netflix has got a hole there, but like you said, I think there is a bit of a fatigue because I think Marvel tried to it was just too much, um, and are starting to find their footing again because I think they're understanding what people want. I think developing characters in these where they could connect, but don't necessarily have to connect to everybody. I think that was it was the benefit and the cool thing about what we saw with the whole Endgame saga
Mhm.
was that this all connected. And I'm glad that James has seemed to take a different approach in the fact that like these can exist together, but they don't necessarily have to. Which I really enjoy. Like I feel like that's a really good start for Jordan, to be honest with you. I did not like any movie I ever saw with involving DC really. I always was like, oh, this is awful. Like this isn't even close to what they're doing over there. Um where now I really do like watching this, and I'm excited to because I'll go back and watch Peacemaker just because I've heard some good things about it. But like DC's starting to finally, I feel, and I know you see a lot more positive in some of the DC movies that have existed before, but like this is an entry point for a lot of us, especially myself. Like this is an entry point into a universe where I did feel it like it was lacking good storytelling and good
Mhm.
as much as Marvel, and I always hate to compare that because people are like, well, the DC versus Marvel kind of thing, but I feel like they both can coexist and they both can be great storytellers, which is what we need. Because I think DC being good, Jordan, forces Marvel to be good too.
Yeah.
So like I think it's good competition to have DC now going, oh, okay, we got it, and with James Gunn under direct, like I just feel like this is a match made in heaven. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. No, it's I've always liked I would say some of the DC stuff, right? As a
Yeah,
DC fan, but like I never thought the live action movies were really nailing it the way that they could be.
yeah,
Um Once James Gunn was announced, I had utmost faith in it. And
yeah,
then, you know, seeing this movie, which I usually put I've kind of put a rule on not immediately ranking stuff as soon as it comes out. So
yes,
like I said, I had some friends that say like this is top 3, top 5 superhero
yep,
movie, blah blah. I couldn't say that right away, but I made a rule to like wait a year out to try to prevent recency bias. And I had to change that rule to 6 months because this movie has entered my top 10 of the comic book movies. Um, it's I've rewatched it more than some of the other movies that I either had in there or that I was liking, and it's just this. Even if it all falls apart with the Netflix deal with all this stuff, I'm just happy I have this movie. The post credit scenes don't set up anything that's not going to happen. Um,
yep,
in
yep.
fact, that last scene with Terrific and Superman was
Made it
in the
Marvel
middle of the
themselves.
movie, and
Yes.
James just cut it and put it at the end. Like that's all it was.
Yep.
So he didn't I guess design a end credit scene. He just was like, "Oh, we'll figure it out in post, I guess." But we don't have to worry about this not being tied up. It is nice knowing that we're getting Supergirl and that we're getting Man of Tomorrow. Um, but still each James says he doesn't really like end credit scenes that set up stuff that he then is forced to have to
Yes.
do later. So
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see a lot of those type of end credit scenes in this universe, which means if it all falls apart, if it all dies, we're not sitting here like, remember when they set up that thing that never happened? It's just,
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
this is what it is. So I really enjoy this. So it's up there in the top 10 for me, and I'm sure it'll continue to get higher and higher as I rewatch it. But
yes. But overall, I was really impressed. I know obviously now you've said that it's in your top 10. I would say the same. I would have to go back and look at, where it falls in the top 10, but it's pretty high up there. I mean, I think it hits a lot of and ticks a lot of boxes. I think it has a little bit of a different feel than what I'm usually feeling off of these superhero movies. I actually do think it's a little bit more upbeat when in its upbeat moments. At times it feels very comic booky in the way they interact with each other, which I actually like. I know some people have a hard time with that and the way that Superman kind of goes about his business, but I was like, man, I didn't really have any like critiques of it. Like it felt good. I was going to have a critique if like Mr. Terrific hadn't really kind of wedged his way in with Lois, because it's like, why did we introduce these three all of a sudden? And then they kind of just like, what? No, I give up. I'd be like, what the hell was that? But no, I enjoyed the introduction of them. Has me looking forward to shows that they're going to be in, or movies they're going to be in going forward as their own existence. But like you said, I think the biggest takeaway for me is this is such a great start, a beautiful start to something different, and hopefully it continues on with the same kind of direction which it's taking. Because I mean, I would give this movie a 9.5 out of 10. Really, it really hit home with me, and I feel like it builds for a really exciting sequel with Man of Tomorrow, and it did have that feel where Lex Luthor was not done in this story, in this timeline. So I'm really excited about the future of DC. But Jordan, anything else before we kind of head out?
I have a couple questions for you and just little notes that I wanted to say before we head out. Did you asked me in a text message, how do they not know Clark and Superman are...
Oh yeah.
Did you catch the line that the hypno
glasses? Yeah. It was the glasses.
That is something in one of the comic issues. This was actually probably this is going to sound really dumb, Logan, okay? This is probably the most controversial thing that came out of this movie.
The glasses.
Yes. People were like, this is so dumb. Why do they have to explain it? Because like I said, in some iterations, it's just because of like him portraying himself so differently, right? Like he's a little bit more hunched over as Clark, very different hairstyle.
A little bit more nerdy.
Bumbling, nerdy, compared to Superman standing upright. And you see it in the interview scene too, when he's talking as Clark, and then the interview starts and he leans forward and he's just like, Miss Lane, right? He's got a little different cadence. It's a little, a very good switch there. But I'll tell you, that's what pissed off a lot of the hardcore Superman fans.
Of course, it
is the hypno glasses.
That makes sense.
Is wild, but what you were saying about the lightness and stuff, I do think it has a lot of hope, but I think it has like this great bit of a great balance between dark, because it's got darker than I thought it would, in the sense of Molly getting shot.
That took a turn quick. I was like, damn. Like
Lex has a line and a delivery from Nicholas Hoult that makes me laugh every time after that, where he's like, I thought that would last longer.
Yes. Yeah, basically like, well, that didn't go as planned after he just slaughtered some
Russian roulette style.
It was very Joker, Jordan. It felt very like gun in mouth Joker, like, or with the pool stick. I was like, damn, that had some Jokerness to him. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you have that kind of dark stuff going on. Crypto gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
But then you also have like the light. I mean, the baby Joey stuff is kind of dark.
Yeah.
But you even get the payoff with Molly with the newspaper that Clark wrote an article about, calling him like the real hero and stuff. So like it is, so that's really great. And the fact that he was so willing to sacrifice himself by saying like, don't tell him anything, Superman. Like, I don't have a family. I don't give anything away.
Absolutely.
Protect yourself, So, just a really good mix between light and dark. There's a bit where, obviously don't throw stuff at your spouse, but like Lex throwing the pencils at Eve, and then everybody's cleaning it up.
Yep.
And they put it back on the thing, and he's just so pissed he knocks it right back off for them to pick up again.
Yeah.
Is a nice little touch. I really like Alex as well. So
I was gonna say we didn't even talk about her or what's his name from
and
the paper?
Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, Jimmy Olsen, which both extremely well acted. I love that part where they're in the alleyway and Jimmy's just like, "Leave me alone, you crazy lady."
Yeah.
So that was good. But anything else?
I think that may have been everything I wanted to say.
That was all good. No, this was a lot of fun. I was like, I need to have Jordan on here because I'm going to watch. I'm watching a couple movies that you love so much in the next couple of weeks. I'll be watching Back to the Future soon.
Nice.
But I thought this would be a lot of fun just because, I know this is well after Superman has come out and most people are preparing themselves for Supergirl. But I thought it would be fun to get on here and just chat it up because I don't know a whole lot about Superman and Jordan knows a lot. So I was like, this will be a good balance. That's what I said on one of my other podcast episodes is like, we'll be talking some Marvel, DC, that kind of stuff, comic book. And I was like, it was the Star Wars one. And I was like, Jordan is much more into those universes that I am. So it's nice to have somebody to bounce them off because otherwise sometimes I sound like I'm crazy and don't know what I'm talking about. But this was all good. I really did. I enjoyed the beginning of this and I can't wait to launch more into Superman. But yeah, Jordan, just last thoughts or anything, or let us know where people can find your stuff.
Yeah, at SupesandSabers, all of my social media. We did a whole build up to Superman last year called Superman Sundays, where you can find that playlist on our YouTube. It has us talking about certain comic runs that are instrumental to, like Superman for All Seasons, which is my favorite. All-Star Superman, which was a big inspiration to this. We even did a fun like build your own Superman movie where you take like the fortress from a movie or show and
fun.
take the Pa Kent from what iteration you like or what actor of Superman or Clark you like the most, all that kind of stuff. And we did that with a guest. And then we also ranked our live action Superman suits, all that kind of good stuff. I just guest on a podcast called Dingus Den on the YouTube channel there. They have a series called Before the Cape where they're watching Smallville. And I was just on there for the season 1 finale discussion a couple weeks ago. So you can also find that there. They're doing every Saturday at 9:00 a live stream where they talk about 1 to 2 episodes of Smallville. As there, 2 of them are watching it for the first time. And one of them has watched it a couple times. So that was very fun to be a part of, sticking with the Superman stuff. You and I have been doing Night of the Seven Kingdoms on Screen Society and on Supes and Savers. And I will have some Wonder Man coverage coming soon with our friend Jack coming up on Supes and Savers. So got a lot of good stuff coming here on the podcast.
Yeah, anything Supes and Sabers, definitely check out Jordan's. We're underneath the same media brand. We're Logjam Media. And you'll find Jordan and I all sorts of podcasts, mostly heavily Jordan's. I think I have 3 or 4 on there. But I've been jumping on in different random areas to help out Jordan on other podcasts. So hopefully covering more of that. He will be much more of the Supes and Sabers guy. I'll do shows and I've told people I'll do Marvel, we'll do DC, and we'll do Star Wars as well, Game of Thrones. But most of our focus is a lot on just top television too. I know Jordan, you've got a podcast that also does the same thing, but right now, for instance, it's a little bit different than what Jordan's doing. We're doing Shrinking, which is season 3 has just released its first episode. We're also covering The Pit over on HBO Max. And it is currently in its 2nd season. So I just recorded some episodes on that. And then I jumped on here with Jordan. So I've been talking all day and I'll probably end the podcast now before I lose all wind to be able to talk anymore. So again, thanks Jordan for jumping on. It was a lot of fun talking Superman with you. I think that's going to do it for us. You can find us at the Screen Society Podcast over on Instagram and X. On X, we are Screen, and then Society is shortened. I shortened it to SOC Pod. And then on Instagram, we are the Screen Society Pod 0. I guess the regular just Screen Society hashtag was taken. But you can find us on Facebook, YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, review. Helps people find us in the show. Check out Jordan's Supes and Sabers. Make sure to rate and like his stuff. It helps people find his channel as well. But again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time on the Screen Society Podcast.